Welcome to r/Entitledparents, where an entitled mother gets mad at OP because her son got suspended for throwing acid on her. Our next Reddit post is from Chudazan. I was 14 when this happened. It was during chemistry when we had to go to a lab to learn about the neutralization of acid and alkali. Simple stuff, really. So this class was arranged in a way that I was sitting directly in front of Entitled Kid. I couldn't switch because we were arranged via index number and cross-gender and a bunch of other factors. Basically, I can't change my seat. On our desks, we had, as far as I can remember, a bunch of bottles containing chemicals, mainly alkalis and acids. Weak acid, but it's acid. The Entitled Kid was the classic, I don't give a flip about school type, and constantly getting into trouble for talking in class. Disrupting lessons, not handing in homework, you get the point. Everyone has had this one person in class before, right? The class goes on as usual until my male chemistry teacher confronts the Entitled Kid about why he isn't doing the experiment. It's just simply adding acid into alkali and seeing something happen. But Entitled Kid simply ignores the teacher. The teacher gets a little frustrated and says things like, "Do the experiment, help your partner, and stop being lazy." The Entitled Kid simply replied, "Go away!" The teacher continued to pester him to do the experiment for a good 2 minutes. Then, Entitled Kid got super triggered and smashed the table before swiping away the bottles of chemicals, which, unluckily, got me splattered in what I believe was diluted sulfuric acid according to one of my friends. I thought I was gonna die because I could feel the acid dripping from my hair, and my hair was quite long and was able to be in contact with my back. So basically, my whole back was covered in acid. And the bottles we were given only had 5 milliliters, but I could feel my whole back drenched. The male chemistry teacher pulled the Entitled Kid by the arm and forced him outside the lab, while the female teacher brought me to the bathroom to wash away the acid that was probably eating into my flesh right about then. It was scary, like a snake slithering on your back. I got rinsed off and had a few red spots on my back, and got a cream or something applied to my back in the general office. And my mother fetched me home to see the doctor. Nothing fatal, really. The day after the lab lesson, I was called to the principal's office with Entitled Kid and Entitled Mom, as well as my male and female chemistry teachers. My mother couldn't be there, as she had part-time work at a supermarket. The principal said, "According to reports from the teacher as well as the classmates, your child splattered acid over OP and had an angry outburst in class." The entitled mother replied, "So, does that seem to be a problem? Why not just ask OP to sit in front of my Entitled Kid then?" Excuse me? It's not like I can change my own seat. If I could, I definitely would, because I wouldn't want to be around Entitled Kid. The principal said, "Nevertheless, your son has hurt OP and acted aggressively against the teacher. We're giving him 5 days in-house suspension." I was hoping for a cane, but that works too, I guess. The entitled mother's face was red with anger, and the Entitled Kid still had this whatever look on his face. I'm just blankly laughing in my head. The entitled mother and Entitled Kid were told to leave, while the 2 teachers remained to do some writing on Entitled Kid's report book or something. As we left the principal's office, Entitled Mother just slaps me on the face, leaving a red mark on my cheek. "Why did you get my son suspended?" Now, I'm a shy, quiet girl, and I never get into situations like this, so I'm just baffled thinking of what to say. And Entitled Mother simply gives me another slap, and I fall onto the ground. I'm about to break into tears at this point when the principal storms out of his office and loudly asks, "Entitled Mother, Entitled Kid, you 2 need to leave now." Entitled Mother still has the courage to scream, "It's her fault my son is suspended." The principal was about to call security at this point when the 2 teachers came out to ask what was going on here. The Entitled Mother just screams, "This is the worst principal I have ever seen. You made my son receive suspension when this..." The principal cuts her off and quietly says, "Ma'am, you have one last chance to get off the school grounds before I expel your child." The Entitled Mother says with absolute confidence, "You can't do that." And I really don't think the principal can, because by law, school is mandatory. Though I guess Entitled Kid could be moved to another school. I don't know, I'm not a politician. 2 security guards at the school gate came up and asked what was happening. The principal simply asked them to take Entitled Mother and Entitled Kid away, and the security guards dragged them out of the school. All the while, Entitled Mother was calling the principal out for unfair discipline. And the whole time, Entitled Kid still had that "I don't give a flip about anything" look on his face, other than a few devilish smiles thrown out randomly. I was completely fine after that, and the acid burns healed after a few weeks. Last I heard, Entitled Kid was transferred to a private school and probably didn't get his 5-day suspension. I heard rumors that private schools hand out discipline based on family income, so he's probably going to be hell for the students in that school because his parents are quite well off. Honestly, this story seems like the type of thing where you could actually go to the cops and press charges. The kid splashed acid on you. I mean, heavily diluted acid, but acid nonetheless. And the mom slapped you twice, all while you're a minor? I mean, if that type of thing doesn't deserve at least a few days in jail, then what does? Our next Reddit post is from GS. So I'm an 18-year-old girl, and I work as an office assistant and secretary at a veterinarian's office. Since I mostly just check people and schedule appointments and stuff for their pets, I'm not certified in animal care or anything. A few months ago, we had this one lady, let's call her Karen, come in with her medium-sized pit bull mix. I check her in and check her dog's file, and it says that he has a past history of being aggressive towards the vet and the vet techs. This means that he's required to have a muzzle on before going into the room with the vet. This is the conversation that follows. Hey, it looks like the dog has a past history of being aggressive towards the vet, so he's going to have a muzzle on before he goes into the room. Do you have one on you?
No, I don't have a muzzle with me. He won't need one.
I'm sorry, ma'am. He's going to have a muzzle on him before the vet can look at him. It's the rules. We have some that we can use for the appointment.
Why? Is it because he's a pit bull? He's just a big baby and wouldn't even hurt a fly. This is discrimination against pit bulls.
No, ma'am, it's not because he's a pit bull. His file says that he's been aggressive towards the vet before. A lot of dogs don't like the vet, so it's pretty common for them to have to be muzzled, regardless of the breed. We've had to muzzle Chihuahuas before.
My dog just doesn't like the vet to be touching him or messing with his body parts. Just tell the vet not to do that and he won't bite like last time.
Ma'am, how is the vet supposed to do his job if he can't touch the dog? He needs to make sure everything is working right.
I don't care. My dog is not going to be muzzled, and that's final. You're discriminating against my little baby because he's a pit bull. I can't believe that I'm facing this kind of harassment for owning a pit bull at a vet's office, for God's sake.
We went back and forth like this for a while. I kept telling her that her dog isn't going to see the vet until he has a muzzle on, and she kept telling me that he didn't mean to bite the vet, and that I was saying he's aggressive because he's a pit bull. Eventually, she put a muzzle on the dog, and he apparently acted fine and non-aggressive with the muzzle on. But since he was non-aggressive once without the muzzle, he will still have to be muzzled for future appointments. She ended up filing a complaint against me because I was discriminating against her and her dog, but it never really went anywhere. She has another appointment next week, so that's gonna be fun. So since this COVID-19 mess started, I've seen lots of videos of entitled Karens refusing to put on a mask before going into a business, but I've never heard of an entitled Karen refusing to put a mask on their dog before going into a business. Our next Reddit post is from Gracie Niv. Background: so when my little brother was in Boy Scouts, he had this best friend named Max. Max was cool, but his parents are horrid. They're racist, ignorant, and entitled. Sadly, they also ran the local Boy Scouts. So one day the Boy Scouts have an outing. We went to the local Natives Reserve. I often tagged along since my mom and the entitled parents are friends. That day, the natives were holding a really fun drum circle and coming of age ceremony. If some of you have never gone, it's basically people singing, banging drums, a big fire, and it's all a good time. The natives start by doing the coming of age ceremony. At this ceremony, the people coming of age are given chewing tobacco. Immediately, the entitled parents start yelling about how it was disgusting, and young people should not be given tobacco. Meanwhile, they always give their much younger kids alcohol. Next, the natives start singing and dancing. It's beautiful, but the entitled parents don't think so. The entitled mother starts screaming that the dancing was too savage, terrifying, and ungodly. Then, she actually gets up and walks through the circle up to the chief. She's stopped by a nice young man who asked her to sit down. She ignored him and narrowed her eyes at the chief.
You need to stop all this.
She waves her hands.
It's scaring my kid. You're traumatizing him. This is inappropriate for kids. Take off that silly costume.
Lady, you brought the 20 kids here. They did not invite you. Also, I'm sitting next to my younger brother and Max. They're both enjoying themselves and talking about Egyptian pyramids. The chief rolls his eyes and says nothing. The nice man asks her again to sit down. She starts to scream again, but notices the many disapproving eyes on her. It wasn't just the Boy Scouts visiting the event, but lots of the local community. She walks back and sits down, steaming. The Boy Scouts never went back, and a couple of years later, the entitled parents were kicked out of the Boy Scouts for cheating and emotionally abusing the kids. And then down in the comments, people asked OP what he meant by emotionally abusing the kids. And basically, the entitled parents would scream at the kids. And all the other kids basically had to obey their entitled kid or they would punish them. Our next Reddit post is from Janice Ian. So we all know how much corporations sure love LGBTQ people during the month of June and will try to capitalize on gayness as much as they can by offering queer-centric products and promoting that stuff in the store. So I'm looking through the adult graphic novel section at a bookstore downtown. Adult, meaning that the books are directed at a mature audience and not necessarily smutty, though sexuality and nudity are often present. And like most bookstores, the children's comics are separate from the adult comics. Most parents understand this and tend to keep their young children away from the adult section. In comes entitled homophobic mom with her kid at about 6 years old. Now, as said previously, it's Pride Month. So the end of the adult graphic novel section has a pedestal where LGBTQ-centered graphic novels are displayed. Of course, the kid, after deciding he was bored with the Smurfs and Garfield or something, decides to start browsing exactly that section, while the entitled homophobic mom is neglecting him and texting on her phone. I hear the kid giggling and realize that he's opened a copy of Le Bleu est une couleur chaude, a very, very lesbian-friendly graphic novel featuring nudity and relatively graphic scenes. I try to get the book out of the kid's hands, and the mother suddenly comes out of her text-induced stupor.
Excuse me, what's going on?
Oh, sorry, it's just that your child got his hands on an inappropriate graphic novel, so I was trying to gently take it away from him.
What do you mean?
The entitled mother suddenly sees the contents of the page her child was looking at.
Son, stop looking at this. I need a manager. Who's the manager here?
It must be said that from this moment on, the entitled mother is no longer interacting with me, which I'm so thankful for. And I just become a passive spectator of the unfolding scene. An employee comes up and says, "Is there a problem, ma'am?"
Yes, is this store trying to promote perversion in young children?
Excuse me? I'm confused.
My child was exposed to disgusting filth. How dare you put this garbage in the comic book section where my child can see it?
Where'd you find it? Because this book is supposed to be in the adult graphic novel section.
It's a comic book. Comic books are for children. Apparently, you people are trying to turn children into disgusting bundle of stick perverts. See, there are nude women being perverted with each other.
She points at a page, tapping it repeatedly like a maniac. Ma'am, this is clearly an adult graphic novel, and it's on display because it's Pride Month.
Pride Month? What is there to be proud of? Degeneracy? Is this store full of bundles of sticks? Is this what you're telling me?
Okay, that's enough. I don't need to get this kind of abuse from you. Leave now and calm the hell down or I'll call the police. I mean, for F's sake, lady, you're 2 blocks away from the gay village. Learn about this neighborhood before making that kind of spectacle.
You're gay too? Get away from me and my son.
Okay, F it. That's enough. Stephanie, he motions to another employee. Call the cops. She needs to go.
No, I'm leaving.
She proceeds to yank her kid by the arm and quickly makes an exit. When the entitled mother steps outside, she yells,
"You're all going to burn in hell."
Later on, I go to the cash register with a couple of books and told them I wanted to pay Visa for my 2 sinful homosexual propaganda comics. Thankfully, they laughed at my joke. If this entitled mother thinks that this type of comic is bad, wait until she finds out about hentai. Our next Reddit post is from Mad Max Furry Road. I'm a 21-year-old female to male trans person, and I work at a convenience store / gas station in a pretty conservative section of my city. As the title implies, I'm gay. Gayer than a tree full of monkeys on nitrous oxide. I'm discreet at work around customers, but I'd answer some of my coworkers' questions since I'm the first openly trans gay guy most people meet. At the time, I've only been working there for about 1.5 months, and Corona wasn't a thing yet. One specific coworker, S, was asking about my boyfriend, A. I'm always delighted to gush about him, so I did. S did her usual, "Oh, that's so sweet, you two are cute" type thing. We went back to doing our jobs, and the rest of our shift only had normal gas station nonsense. All was well. Or was it? S's mom had apparently heard about me talking to S about my man somehow and was out for blood. She's a literal Karen, haircut and everything, and very aggressively Texan. She's also a military wife. This is the entitled mother. The entitled mother came storming in the next day with S and dragged the general manager outside. I wasn't working that day, so I don't have specific dialogue, only the gist of what my general manager told me later when I worked next. Outside, the entitled mother started yelling at the general manager about how I'm disgusting and going to taint her daughter because I'm gay and don't have a disco stick, culminating in telling him he needed to fire me because of the conversation S and I had had. Poor S was standing there also, probably wanting to melt into the ground as her mom reamed out her boss. I doubt it's the first or the last time it's happened. The general manager somehow mollified the entitled mother and got her to leave so everyone could go back to normal. My next shift, the general manager pulls me aside and asks for my side of events. I told him that I was just answering a question S had asked. Then he told me about the meeting with entitled mother and asked me to be more careful with phrasing to keep things hush-hush. Didn't get me fired or even written up. I still work there, and so does S, who's bi and out, by the way. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. The entitled mother is a lesbian. That entitled mother is a lesbian homophobe? What? That was rSlash_Entitledparents, and if you like this content, check out my Patreon where I publish extra videos. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.